Okay, so today we're going to go over section 1.6, which is over the midpoint formula. Make sure you write down all 3 essential questions and you set up your Cornell notes. I will go through the video at a faster pace than I would in class, so make sure you pause it so you can get down all the information. There are quite a few examples, so make sure you write all of them down, but it is a block day, so you will still have time to work on your homework assignment. Okay, so first thing we're going to go over is how to derive the midpoint formula, or basically where the midpoint formula came from. Okay, so on my coordinate plane, I'm going to start by graphing 2 points. Okay, I'm going to graph point 3, 3. And I'm also going to graph point -3, -3. Okay, so if I was looking for the midpoint of these 2 points, that just means I'm looking for the center. Okay, so the midpoint, I'm going to label M. So a couple things we know about the midpoint. The midpoint is going to be halfway between the x values and it is also going to be halfway between the y values. Okay, so the formula we're going to use, the coordinates of the midpoint M of segment AB with endpoints A as x1, y1 and B as x2, y2 is the following. Okay, so first thing, I want you to draw segment AB. Make sure you label M as the midpoint. Remember, anytime we are doing midpoint, it means that it's dividing the segment in half. So it means the left segment is congruent to the right half of the segment. So AM is congruent to MB. We also know that point A is labeled x1, y1, and point B is labeled x2, y2. Okay, so the formula you're going to have to know for midpoint, M is equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, it is a coordinate point, so make sure you have parentheses and then the comma in the middle. All right, first example, we're finding the midpoint. So we're given point H is 0, 0, and point X is 8, 4. So I'm going to start by labeling x1, y1, and x2, y2. So if I start with H, I'm just going to call that x1, y1. So that just means that 0 is equal to x1, and 0 is equal to y1. Remember, you have to keep x1 and y1 in the same coordinate point. So that means 8, 4 is going to be x2, y2. So that means 8 is x2 and 4 is y2. Okay, so if I'm finding the midpoint, I know midpoint is x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Okay, now if I plug in the missing pieces, I know that x1 is equal to 0, x2 is equal to 8, and we're dividing by 2. y1 is equal to 0. y2 is equal to 4, and we're dividing by 2. So 0 plus 8 is 8, divided by 2 is 4. 0 plus 4 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. So the midpoint with those two endpoints would be 4, 2. Okay, second example, P is 7, 10, and Q is 5, negative 8. So I'm going to start the same way by labeling the endpoints. So here I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to have the midpoint is equal to x1, which is 7, plus x2, which is 5, divided by 2. And then y1, which is 10, plus a negative 8, all divided by 2. Okay, so make sure when we're calculating this, we do 7 plus 5. So we're going to have 12 divided by 2. And then 10 plus a negative 8 is going to be positive 2 divided by 2. Okay, so for the midpoint, 12 divided by 2 is 6. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the midpoint for 7, 10, 5, negative 8 would be 6, 1. Okay, two more examples like this. Okay, so the two endpoints are negative 1, 3, and 7, negative 1. So here I have x1, y1, and x2, y2. So I'm going to have m equals negative 1 plus 7 divided by 2. And then 3 plus a negative 1 divided by 2. So negative 1 plus 7, so positive 6. 3 plus a negative 1 is a positive 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So for that midpoint, we get 3, 1. Okay, last example like this. First endpoint is 13, 8. Second one is negative 6, negative 6. So I labeled my x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to have 13 plus negative 6 divided by 2. And then 8 plus negative 6 divided by 2. So 13 plus a negative 6 is a positive 7. 8 plus a negative 6 is a positive 2. Okay, so if we divide 7 divided by 2, we're going to get a decimal, so I'm just going to leave it as the fraction. I'm just going to leave this one as 7 halves, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so 7 halves 1 would be the midpoint. I know that was 4 examples of those, but make sure you are writing all of them down because remember you will have a homework quiz tomorrow. Okay, so second thing for this lesson, we're going to go over finding a missing end point. Okay, so if we look at example 5, they give us one endpoint of 2, 6 and one midpoint of 5, 12. So if I were to draw a picture of this, okay, so let's say the first endpoint is 2, 6 and the midpoint is 5, 12. We need to find the other end point. So we're looking for this piece over here. So I'm just going to call that XY. So if we're setting up the equation, remember the midpoint is equal to this following equation. Okay, so when I'm filling in the pieces for M stands for midpoint. So I know midpoint is 5, 12. So I'm going to put 5, 12 for M. X1 and X2 refer to the endpoints. So if we look at our two endpoints, one of the X values is 2. The second X value we don't know, so that's just X. And that's both divided by 2. If we look at the endpoints again, we know one Y value is 6. The second Y value is just Y. Okay, so from this we need to solve for X and Y. So if we start by solving for X, so here 5 is in the X place. If we look on the right hand side of the equation, 2 plus X divided by 2 is also in the X place for the coordinate point. So that means that those two are equal. So we're going to have 5 is equal to 2 plus X divided by 2. And then from here, I'm going to solve for X. So to get rid of the 2 in the denominator, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So on the left-hand side, we have 10. On the right-hand side, the 2's cancel. So we're left with 2 plus X. Now I need X by itself, so if I subtract 2, I get that X is 8. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time just for the Y's. So here, 12 is in the Y spot, and 6 plus Y divided by 2 is also in the Y position. So those two are equal. So we're going to have 12 equals 6 plus Y divided by 2. And so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. So we get 24 equals 6 plus Y. If I subtract 6 from both sides, we're going to get that Y is equal to 18. Okay, remember it's asking for the end point, so it's asking for a coordinate point. So that means that my missing end point, we know X was 8 and Y was 18. So in the X position I have 8, in the Y position I have 18. So 8, 18 would be the missing end point. Okay, a couple more examples like this. So the endpoint 2, 3 and midpoint 3, negative 4. So I'm going to set it up the same way. The midpoint 3, negative 4 is equal to the sum of the two endpoints divided by 2. So I know the endpoint, the first X value is 2. We don't know the second X value. We always divide by 2. For the Y coordinate, the Y value is 3. We don't know the second y value, and we're dividing by 2. Okay, so over here, 3 is in the x. 2 plus x divided by 2 is also in the same position. So 3 is equal to 2 plus x divided by 2. Okay, solving for x, multiply both sides by 2. Okay, we need x by itself, so subtract 2 from both sides, so we get x is equal to 4. Okay, then for the y, negative 4 is equal to 3 plus y over 2. And so if I multiply both sides by 2, subtract 3 from both sides, I get that y is equal to negative 11. Okay, and again, we're looking for an end point. So my end point, the coordinate is 4, negative 11. Okay, we have 2 more examples. So last 2. We're still finding the missing endpoint. Okay, so midpoint of 5, negative 8, endpoint of 0, 4. Setting it up the same way, my midpoint is equal to my endpoints. So the x value for the endpoint they give me is 0. We're looking for the other x value. We divide it by 2. And then the y value is 4, and then plus y divided by 2. Okay. So 5 and 0 plus x divided by 2 go together. And so if we multiply by 2, we get 10 is equal to 0 plus x. Remember, 0 plus anything is just itself, so we know that 10 is equal to x. Okay, if I do the same thing for the matching y's, multiplying both sides by 2. Subtracting 4 to get y by itself. We get y is equal to negative 20. And so that means that the missing end point has a coordinate point of 10, negative 20. All right, last example. Gonna go through this one a little bit quicker. So the end point is 2, 3. The midpoint is 3, negative 4. So same thing, 3, negative 4 is equal to the x value of the end point plus the other x value divided by 2, and then the y values. Okay, so 3 corresponds with 2 plus x divided by 2. If I multiply and subtract, I'm going to get that x is equal to 4. So all we're doing is solving for x. And then for the y values, -4 is equal to 3 plus y divided by 2. Same thing, if I multiply and then subtract, I'm going to get y is -11. So the end point that is missing is 4, -11. Okay, those are the only examples we're going to go over. You should have 8 examples worked out in your notes. You need to show the substitute those 8 examples, and then he will give you your homework assignment. So if you did not write an example down, you need to go back in the notes and find it and write it down. Tomorrow we will have a short open note quiz, so make sure you bring all of your notes, all of your homework. And we will also do a little bit of review. So if you had questions over this, we will go over some of it tomorrow, but make sure that you try to work on your homework. And I will see you tomorrow.